Glowing Star, A Sharp Intake of Breath, 1977, cast, then and now 2025. In British television history, A Sharp Intake of Breath, 1977 to 1981, is a classic sitcom created by writers Ronald Chesney and Ronald Wolfe. The film revolves around the main character Peter Barnes, a gentle man who is always caught up in awkward situations with neighbors, colleagues, and even complicated administrative procedures. With its everyday, subtle and close humor, the film left a strong impression on the hearts of audiences in the 70s and 80s. In 2025, looking back on the journey of nearly half a century, the audience not only remembers the laughter but also appreciates the marks of the cast that contributed to the success. Star main cast, then and now: David Jason, Peter Barnes. Then, 1977, David Jason plays Peter Barnes, a kind man who often gets into trouble when just wants to live peacefully. This role demonstrated his versatile acting talent before becoming a legend with Only Fools and Horses. Now, 2025, at over 80 years old, David Jason is considered one of the greatest comedians in Britain. Although he rarely appears on screen, he is often invited to participate in retrospective shows and receives Lifetime Achievement Awards. Jacqueline Clarke, Sheila Barnes. Then, she played Sheila, Peter's gentle but also straightforward wife, often the reasonable support for the troubles her husband encountered. Now, Jacqueline Clarke gradually withdrew from the screen after the 90s to focus on the stage. She now lives a rather private life, but is still loved by audiences when mentioning A Sharp Intake of Breath. Richard Wilson, Mr. Griffiths, and many supporting roles. Then, before he became famous with One Foot in the Grave, Richard Wilson played many roles in the series, often as bureaucratic, difficult characters that Peter had to deal with. Now, Richard Wilson, now in his 80s, is a monument of British television. He still participates in a number of interview programs and is warmly welcomed by audiences. Alan Armstrong, many supporting roles. Then, Armstrong participated in the series in many small roles, bringing diverse colors to the humorous stories. Now, famous for a series of works from new tricks to epic movies, Alan Armstrong is now one of the most familiar faces in British television and cinema, and at the age of over 70, he is still persistent in his career. Herb Legacy. A Sharp Intake of Breath is not only a sitcom that brings laughter, but also a mirror of British social life in the late 70s. The annoying administrative procedures, the funny and sad situations in the family and the office are all shown truthfully but full of humor. The film is also a big stepping stone in David Jason's career, helping him affirm his position and then become one of the most famous comedians in the UK. Red Heart. Thank you for the memories. By 2025, the audience still mentions A Sharp Intake of Breath as a beautiful part of British television memories. The actors who were associated with the film, even though they have now left the spotlight or entered their twilight years, are still remembered with all respect. The laughter from the 70s still echoes, reminding us that simple, everyday stories sometimes create the most lasting memories.